every day, in every way, my life is getting better and better. Now, I was toying with the idea of putting that on a box and putting it over my head. But it turns out Paul did that last week, so I don't have to do it, and I also don't need to worry about poking my box with a screwdriver. It was good, it's already been done. Every day, in every way, my life is getting better and better. Try saying that with me. Every day, in every way, my life is getting better and better. Yeah. We're going to put a bookmark on that, because what I said is try saying that, but you didn't try saying that. You just said that. Try raising your right hand. Yeah, you didn't try, you just did it. Try making your liver work. You don't have to try. You don't have to do anything. Your liver is working. And oh, by the way, for people whose liver is not working, they become aware of it. It becomes an issue and something to be taken care of. And the idea is to let go of trying and just be doing. Now, every day, in every way, my life is getting better and better. As a paraphrase from Emile Coué's, what he said. He's a psychologist and hypnotist in the mid-19th, early 20th century. And what he said is, day by day, in every way, my life is getting better and better. And I changed it a little bit because day by day seems like there might need to be a progression in it. And so I changed it around a little bit. Every day, in every way, my life is getting better and better. Now, our particular flavor of new thought is religious science. And somebody who notices the word science would say, well, that's not scientific. It's not quantitative. What do you mean by better? And in fact, if we were approaching this scientifically and we want to quantify it, we'd need to figure out what we mean by better. However, if your life is better today than it was yesterday, will you notice?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. It's about that qualitative, experiential, I'm inviting my life to get better and better and better still. And it's an infinite universe. There's infinite possibility in this universe. If my life is going great today, is there any way that it's impossible for it to get even better tomorrow? No, it can always get better. There's always the opportunity for it to get better. And there doesn't have to be anything wrong with it today. Every day, in every way, my life is getting better and better. The talk is about being in the flow. And I knew that I was going to be at this yoga retreat last week, and there's going to be an opportunity to talk about being in the flow. Because usually when I do yoga, it's a pretty physical practice. Yoga in itself is just a way to get into a meditative state, but I like the physicality of it, as does my daughter Victoria. We went to this yoga retreat together, and it was all about, it's called Time for Pause, and it's about stopping and letting go and being okay with it. And when we first were discussing going, she dreaded the idea. Oh my God, I have to spend an entire weekend with me? How am I going to do that? And by allowing ourselves to be in the flow and to pause, we had a different experience than we were expecting we might have. And it was wonderful. It was different and it was wonderful. Because every day in every way, my life is getting better and better. Now, what Coué suggested that we do for that is he knew that as a hypnotist, that there's a time of day, actually a couple of times of day, where we actually are in a self-hypnotic state. It's called hypnagogia. It's when we go from being asleep to being awake, or being awake to being asleep, where we have some conscious access to that same subconscious state that we're going to be in. So his idea was 20 times a day, first thing upon waking up, and the last thing when you're going to sleep, is to repeat that to yourself as a mantra every day in every way. My life is getting better and better. Because your subconscious mind only has one answer. It's going to say yes. The infinite creative power in the universe, which is the same power, the infinite subjective law of the universe, and our individualized subjective consciousness or subconscious is exactly the same thing. We're not aware of how they're connected because it's subconscious. We're not aware of that. So if we can introduce that idea every day, in every way, my life is getting better and better, into the same creative law that has created galaxies that responded to let there be light, there's some pretty cool things possible there. In fact, there are some remarkably cool things possible. Every day, in every way, my life is getting better and better. And see what happens. We like to talk about this as being the laboratory of your life, because things don't need to continue going tomorrow or later today the way they've gone up until now. Reverend Dave and I were talking that he got a reputation in the first 10 years of us teaching classes of interrupting students and saying, up until now. But he's got such a reputation for it now that everybody says, well, as Reverend Dave says, up until now. To the point where he doesn't get a chance to say it. So, up until now. Nicely. Well played. Well played. So we get to choose. We get to choose the experience that we wish to have. And it can be very specific about what we want it to look like or feel like or be like, or we can be really broad. Every day, in every way, my life is getting better and better. And when the better shows up, all we have to do is notice, wow, this is better. That's kind of one of the reasons that we're doing the Unexpected Income Club. Through what channel is your unexpected income going to show up? You don't know, because it's unexpected. And that's about letting go of our attachment to how it's going to happen. And just, in that case, it's like, this is going to be income. And income is going to be money that I have to spend, share, invest, tithe, do whatever I want with. And unexpected means that it's in addition to whatever it was that I was already planning. The same thing works with all the stuff that's going on in our lives. And we don't need to quantify it ahead of time and say, well, I want it to be in my relationships, I want it to be in my health, it needs to be this particular goal. It can be as broad-based as every day in every way. My life is getting better and better. And just watch. Watch the world around you. Pay attention to what was in the rearview mirror. If you want to use a journal to keep track of exactly what it was that was pissing you off yesterday so that you can notice that it's gone today, you're welcome to do that. Or to record the stories of where you are and what you're inviting and what you're intending so that you can refer back to them and go, wow, these things that I was looking for, I didn't just get them. They have become so much a part of me that I didn't even remember that I didn't have them back in the good old days when I didn't have them. Every day, in every way, my life is getting better and better. So there are these two books that I've been reading simultaneously. So this one is The Miracle Club by Mitch Horowitz, and he's the one who reminded us about Emile Coué and a bunch of other stuff. And the other one is The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra, which is the one that we're doing in the book study. And the book club, as you probably heard, meets tomorrow. It's going to be at the Old Pine Community Center, which is 4th and Lombard. It's going to be our first time over there since we started our 10 years since New Thought Philly has been over there. We had our first in the city meeting group there, and then we graduated, and now we're going for a homecoming. And even if you haven't been in the book club up until now, you are welcome to join us. If you get yourself a copy of the book, that will be helpful. Read the first 4 chapters. We've been studying the first 3. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about the 4th chapter, which is the law of least effort. What a coincidence that it's the time for the day before or the day after I'm doing the talk on being in the flow. The law of least effort is where Chopra points out that the flowers do not try to bloom. The trees do not try to grow. They just do. It is the nature of babies to be blissful. And when they're hungry, they let you know that they're hungry so that you can take care of that and they can go back to being blissful. So there are 3 elements in the law of least effort. And by the way, I also have this on an audio book. It is wonderful to listen to Deepak Chopra as he reads these things and makes sense of them for us. So the first aspect of the law of least effort is acceptance. And sometimes that's pretty tough. Acceptance is where the oak tree gives up on the thought that it's going to be a cherry tree and accepts the fact that it's an oak tree and just oaks to the best of its ability. Acceptance is, this is the situation as it is. And what happens is any energy that we have that's fighting with the current situation is energy that's not going towards our growth. It's energy that's going towards the current situation. And if it's true that every day in every way my life is getting better and better, then there is some sort of a transformation possible. In the case of an oak tree that thinks it wants to be a cherry tree, my rational thinking mind, and by the way, I'm not suspecting that oak trees are thinking about what they want to be when they grow up, but just to continue with the metaphor, is eventually that oak tree would come to the realization that there's a lot of value in being an oak tree. There's a lot of things that an oak tree can do that a cherry tree can't do, and to be okay with where it is as it goes through its cycle. Or perhaps there's some miraculous transformation where, there's a shift in the nature of the universe and the oak trees all become cherry trees. Or maybe just one of them. I don't know. It's above my pay grade. But that's the first law, is the law of acceptance. And how do we know when we're not accepting something? Well, you can watch your breathing. If the inhales are much easier than the exhales, there's probably something that we're not accepting. Watch your fists. If they're clenched up more than you'd like them to be, that's another good sign. Feel your gut, feel your heart. Feel where the tension is. Because when we're not accepting something, we feel it in our bodies. Because the bodies are the way that the subconscious speaks to our conscious awareness, to us and through us. And has anybody ever had your body tell you something and you ignored it? Yeah. And there are other times when we pay attention to our body, to what our body needs. Well, I get 8 hours of sleep every night. And that's enough. And maybe there's a night when I need 10 hours of sleep. Or maybe normally I'm okay with 4 hours and I need 6. If I just go along insisting that 4 hours is plenty for me, my body will eventually take corrective action. I don't need to intervene at all. Something will come along to give me the opportunity to, in my case, a lot of times it's to lie in bed going, I wish I felt better. So we can pay attention. We can pay attention and accept where we are on the path. And then we can take the next step. So my wife has a Fitbit, and it tells her how well she's sleeping. And, for the longest time, it would just tell her that she got, 6.2 hours of sleep or 7, whatever it is. And it was an interesting data point. And I have a Fitbit, but I take it off because it's really none of my business what my Fitbit thinks about how well I slept. And I was asleep. I don't know. They upgraded the software. So now, in addition to being quantitative, telling her that she got 8.2 hours of sleep, it tells her that it was fair. She's getting all indignant about the judgment that the Fitbit software is putting on her. It's like, what do you mean it's only fair? It was 8 hours. And we can take that as a data point. We can take that as information. We can just accept it. Was the quality of the sleep fair or good? It's really much more up to us. The acceptance part in that one is my Fitbit thinks that it was only fair. Interesting. I don't even need to argue with the Fitbit. I may agree with it, I may disagree with it. But that's my choice. I get to choose what it is that I want to do. And actually, that kind of leads to the third piece that Chopra talks about in the law of least effort, which is defenselessness. Anybody ever had somebody say something and then you had a defensive response? Yeah. Today?
What do you mean?
This one is really, really challenging because we've been going along doing what we think of as our best, and somebody points out that it really was not adequate to the requirements, and we get defensive. Well, I was doing the best I could. Well, maybe you were doing the best you could. Where's the energy coming from? It's like, I was doing the best I could. I'm not going to defend myself and say that the unacceptable or undesirable or inadequate situation is reasonable because I did everything that I could. I did the best I could, and the situation still sucks. Maybe it sucks a little bit less. Maybe tomorrow part of the everyday in every way. It'll be better and better. It'll get better. But we put so much energy from time to time into being defensive, to holding on to the situation that somebody has pointed out is not working the way that we want it to. We get into fights about that. How magical would my life be if when somebody pointed out something where I completely dropped the ball, there was something I was supposed to do and I just didn't. And instead of having any energy about it, we could just go on to, let's move on and do the best that we can from now and leave that as an up until now. Up until now, this was a complete fail. So what can we turn it into now? What we're then doing is we're putting all of our effort into blossoming, into growing, into expanding, into deepening. Instead of putting our energy into holding on to the past and trying to convince ourselves, or perhaps the people around us, the other egos in the room, that maybe it wasn't as bad as everybody says it was. And maybe my opinion is that there's nothing wrong. That was not something that I needed to do. It wasn't something that needed to be taken care of. But there's energy in the room. Now sometimes when I get defenseless, or I go into defenselessness, the person with whom I am engaging still has an overwhelming need to be right. So they like to hammer me about it. No, really, this was bad. Yes, I understand this was bad, and I wish it were bad. No, you messed this up. Yes, I completely did. At some point we will get to the end of this particular sequence. But that's all on an ego level. That's all on the level of, and I was talking a couple of weeks ago, would you rather be right or be happy? And the answer is we want to be both. And defenselessness is when we decide on happy. I don't need to be right, I'm choosing happy. And on those occasions when we get everybody in the conversation onto let's just be happy, we can take so much energy out of the situation. Because, okay, it hadn't worked for us up until now. There's a whole bunch of things we can point to and say, this is just awful. And what are we going to do next? What's that next invitation? If my life is getting better every day and in every way, am I open to that? Do I need to know what it looks like? Or can it just be better? I don't know. The second one, in the law of least effort, I'm doing these out of order. Want to make something up? Let's fight. Is responsibility. So the first one is acceptance. I need to accept the situation the way that it is. And then I have the responsibility that whatever it is that brought this situation into being, I am at least in some way responsible for that. Even if I had no physical involvement in bringing it about, this is an infinite universe that is all based in consciousness. Creation happens first with an idea, that's the cause, and then things happen in the world. Scientists say if you push on something, that's the cause, and it moves, that's the effect. In metaphysics, we know that there's a deeper piece, a deeper element to that. The cause is when I decide to push on it. And then the push and the move are both effect. There is a step that happens before what Newtonian science says is the cause. So we can go back to cause. There's some coordinating intelligence that's creating all these experiences. And if I take responsibility for whatever participation I've had, either in physically creating the circumstance or inviting it to happen, or allowing it to happen, or just being in the place where it happened, I need to accept responsibility for that, because that's what lets me let go of whatever my attachment was. That lets me go into defenselessness and have a new invitation. What do I want to create next? Or what am I willing to allow to come into creation next? In Pittston, Pennsylvania, they give you 10 days. I'm going to take the U out of that. They give people like me 10 days to pay a traffic summons. They have a clever little racket there where you go from one interstate to another interstate, and they manage to have like 10 feet of Pennsylvania highway with a stop sign on it in the middle of an interstate interchange. And on Friday evenings, The local constabulary waits there because they know there are going to be people heading to the Poconos with an extra however much it's going to be for their summons. So the reason that I know that it's 10 days is because on the way to the yoga retreat, I got to meet one of these fine officers. I managed to not get put in handcuffs, which my daughter was very grateful for. And as part of their fundraising activity, they stop people and give them a citation there. And I found myself looking up if there were any stories about that particular interchange, because it's just wrong, for somebody to be coming around a hairpin turn on an interstate and have a stop sign there. And in fact, when I saw the stop sign, I was going 40 miles an hour. I was like, I'm not going to be able to stop. Why is there a stop sign here in the middle of an interstate interchange? So I Googled it to see if maybe somebody else had some pointers on how to contest this. And yesterday I sent off a check. It's like, you know what? I was there. Was it a setup? Maybe. But I accept it. It's my responsibility for whatever was going on, for me to be driving through this interchange too fast to be able to stop where they put a stop sign where, in my egoic sense of judgment, it shouldn't have been. Take responsibility, defenselessness. That's about not going and contesting it in court. Although if I were going to win, I might not defend myself. I might just put the pieces together in a different way. That's a whole different story. And I got a good one about that. I get to take responsibility. And I noticed that it took me 8 days to let go and say, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. So those are the pieces that come together. As you are saying to yourself or out loud, every day in every way, my life is getting better and better. What are you willing to let go of? What are you willing to accept? And what are you going to acknowledge as your responsibility? Because, oh, by the way, we don't talk about control and blame. In New Thought, I'm not controlling the circumstances of my life. I'm inviting that new experience to come in. And I'm going to go what it's going to look like. That's why the Unexpected Income Club is so great, because we don't know where it's coming from. It's unexpected. But we get to choose the sorts of experience we want to have. So instead of control, we have authority. I'm the author of my experience. I get to write that next chapter. Here's how it's going to go. I don't necessarily know what all the details are. And I haven't seen how the story's coming out yet. But we have the authority to set that intention. And the flip side of it is not blame. When something shows up in our life, whether it's unexpected income or unexpected traffic summons, we're accountable for that. We're not to blame. We don't get to take credit when things are good. We don't get to blame somebody when they're bad. We simply get to accept. We are accountable for whatever it is that we're creating in our lives. So it's authority and accountability. And that's what's going on all the time. So what I invite you to do this week, 20 times upon waking up and 20 times as you're drifting off to sleep, is see what happens if you remind yourself that every day, in every way, my life is getting better and better. And let's see what the prayer work stories are. Because you deserve wonderful, joyous ones. So it is.
So it is.